This is Donna and Barb back with Step Into the Story. And instead of doing a featured author this month, we are doing a special episode covering 2 of our reading challenge books. So, but before we do that, how are you, Barb?
I'm good. How are you doing, Dee? How's the book release coming? Donna's book came out last week, for those who don't know.
It did. The ebook and the audio came out last week, and then the paperback is coming out on the 1st in the US and the 6th here in Canada.
Burning up the Canadian charts?
We'll see. We'll see what happens when the paperback comes out. But yeah, it looks like it's been doing okay here.
Reviews have been great.
Reviews have been really great, so I'm really lucky that way. Yeah, so and I'm doing some promo stuff, which puts me out of my comfort zone a little bit. So that's always interesting. But you can't just say, "Yeah, I'm good. How are you?" You have to like expand on that. What's new with you?
Let's see. Been working on the book.
Yeah.
Which hopefully will be finished and on somebody's desk by sometime this fall.
Mm-hmm.
And next week I babysit. So
nice.
My daughter-in-law is without a partner, without daycare, and only has one working knee. So, and she's 8 months pregnant. So
grandma to the rescue.
That's it.
Yeah. We have baby days here every day because if you look over here, there's a playpen behind me.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, but he's asleep upstairs right now, so playpen's not required. So busy days. All right, so we are going to talk about 2 books today. I have both of them here, and I know you have.
I have slides as well.
Yeah,
we're going to do something a little different today in that we're each taking one. And kind of doing a little mini review because Donna overdid the assignment, read both. I, of course, did my usual slack off and only read one.
Okay, but to be fair, I still have 100 pages left in The Witch and the Tsar.
Oh,
so so don't spoil it too much because I'm really enjoying it. But yeah, so my pick was The Librarian of Burned Books by Brianna Lebuskes, and she normally writes thrillers. And is a reporter by trade. So I read this one. I had it on my TBR since last year when I met her in San Antonio at the Historical Novel Society conference. I really, really, really enjoyed this one. I made a few notes so I wouldn't forget, but we have 3 points of view and three different time periods. Very close to each other, though. So there's 1933 and there's 1936 and then 1944. So in 1933, one of our characters, Althea, she's an American author, and she's invited to Germany at the invitation of Joseph Goebbels on a cultural exchange. And so she goes to Berlin and she gets swept up in sort of the fever. It's when, Hitler's rise to power. And she's, of course, sponsored by the Nazis. So in the beginning, she seems a little wishy-washy. Like she's just a little too accepting of what's going on and comes across as a bit naive. And she meets another woman, Hannah. And Hannah is German. She's a librarian. She's Jewish. She's part of the resistance in Berlin against fascism. And so what's really great about this 1933 time period is, Althea and the reader gets introduced to Berlin, and they end up at a lot of cabarets, and it's a little bit more risque side of things. And we quickly learned that Hannah is a lesbian, and the people that go to the cabarets, of course, it's, everyone is welcome and it's a safe space. And so Althea gets swept up in this and she actually really enjoys it. But then again, she's being sponsored and she has almost like a handler who was a Nazi. So there's this push and pull going on between the two sides and what she really thinks, and is she a risk to those that are in the resistance? And then there's this growing attraction with Hannah. Then the second point of view, second time period is 1936. And we see this mostly from Hannah's point of view. And we learn in the 1936 point of view in Paris that Hannah has escaped Germany. She's living in Paris. She works for the German Library of Banned Books and is part of the anti-fascist movement there. And we also learned that her brother from the 1933 time period was captured, and that his future is certainly uncertain. And we learn that she has been betrayed, and Althea is no longer in the picture. So, as she alternates between these two time periods.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Is it linear, or does they jump back and forth?
Alternates between, so you go back and forth. So, you kind of get, it gets drip fed. And so when you're in 1936, you're like, what happened? Like, what happened to cause this big falling out, this betrayal? Like, how did it all happen? So that's really interesting. And then the 1944 time period is set in New York, and the heroine's name is Vivian, and she works as one of the administrators for the Armed Services editions. So the little portable books that they printed up and sent with soldiers. And so at the time, Taft was a senator, and he and Roosevelt were, of course, opponents. And so there was a bill that Roosevelt wanted to pass, and Taft got this amendment tacked on, as quite often what happens. And it was basically a censorship amendment to censor the books that were going overseas. And so this becomes Vivian's crusade. And she's a war widow. And her husband's brother is a congressman. And so there's a whole history there that we find out with Vivian. And then in trying to defeat Taft and get this reversed, not included in the bill, Vivian plans this big event. And during her research, she meets a librarian at the American Library of Nazi Banned Books. And we don't know who this librarian is, but before too long, you have your suspicions. Mm-hmm. And then you're asking, why is she in New York? So we're drawn along on this journey, and it really is about the censorship, and then bringing Hannah and Althea together and figuring out what the initial betrayal really was, and who it was. And so this is all tied together beautifully. The way she goes from time period to time period is really well done. At the very beginning, I found it a little bit jarring maybe, but after that, really got into a rhythm with it. There's themes of, censorship and authoritarianism. Of course, it's really relevant looking at what's happening right now with banning books, and not to get into politics too much, but, today's politics. And then it also has this really great sapphic romance that I just found the last quarter just to be so incredibly satisfying. So I really loved it. I thought she had a lot of important things to say, and she did that through her characters. There's a speech at this event that both Althea and Hannah make, but Althea in particular, because she's been a recluse since she came back after the whole thing in 1933, and she makes this impassioned speech, and that speech alone, just like it gave me chills when I read it. So I highly recommend this one. Super glad we picked it for a challenge book. And yeah.
Okay, just to clarify, just because when you first said to me before, this is not Taft, the former president.
This is William Taft, the senator.
Correct, not Howard Taft, our president.
Right.
When you're like, she's confronting Taft, I'm like, huh?
Yeah, no, sorry.
Like, that would be going back in time. So how is this?
Yeah, no, William Taft.
Thank you.
Yes,
there
the senator. Sorry, I should have said William.
Yeah. All right, there we go. That was the only thing you were like, Taft. And I'm like, he's a president. So
yeah, no, okay. Sorry.
So that actually does sound kind of cool, though. So.
Yeah, and it is inspired by a true story. So yeah, it's different from. There's actually not a lot of World War II in it, even though it's a Hitler sort of based story, because most of it happens before the war started, and then the 1944 part all happens in New York. So it's actually kind of neat. There's no actual battles or anything that are going on. It's all about these relationships. Very character driven. Loved it.
I like a good character driven book.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
me too. So highly recommend. So
I grabbed a different one, and so first I'm going to say I owe Sydney Young again, because my book was The Witch and the Tsar, and I'm going to pronounce her name. I have to read it to make sure I pronounce it right, and if I still going to frick it up. It's Olyesa Gilmore.
Yeah.
Sound close? Okay.
Yeah. And so we have two different covers for it. So if you bring up
I wanted to talk about that because this is the hardcover one. All right.
Yeah.
And I did not like it. I'm going to give it a different
But this is the other one.
No, I know. This is the paperback, which
you have that one too. Sorry.
Much better. Okay. I actually showed my husband. I said, "Would you pick up this book?" And he's like, "No, I don't like it." And I didn't like it when it came out. I don't think it did the book justice. Now, I know a lot of people loved it, but as a bookseller from far away, you can't see the details. You have to get right up in it. And so whereas this one draws you in much better. So I thought they gave her a much nicer paperback cover, which hopefully will be better. The other thing was interesting was it is not shelved in historical fiction. It's shelved as fantasy science fiction, which took me forever to find. And I think that also hurt it. I don't know how the sales were. To be honest, I haven't looked it up, but I suspect a lot of historical fiction readers who would read it wouldn't have found it because it was in that shelf. Yeah. So go to your fantasy section and grab this. It is a recommend for me. It is a retelling of the Russian myth of Baba Yaga. Those who don't know, Baba Yaga is, it depends. Early versions of her had her as Mother Nature, kind of the woman who protected all of nature. Then Christians came in and she became this kind of a witch who ate children. And she was ugly, but she had a hut on chicken legs, and she had animals that talked to her, but they all thought of her as evil. And the one that most people read is where the young maiden goes to Baba Yaga and keeps her prisoner. And Baba Yaga's like, knit for me, do this for me, go clean my niece because I'm going to eat her. And the girl helps everyone escape, and all the animals are revolt against Baba Yaga. Olyesa, did I pronounce it right? Olyesa. I really don't want to destroy her game, but she decided to revision it as a feminist version. So her version of Yaga brings back both the Mother Nature and turns her into more of a younger woman who's the daughter of Mother Nature, and she's half human, half immortal. And she ties that story in with the story of Ivan the Terrible which is fascinating.
It is.
The book runs from 1560 to 1582. It's incredibly complex. I'm not going to try to summarize it because she has so many moving parts in this book that the writer in me was so impressed, and I can only imagine what her storyboard was.
Yeah.
She has one point of view, and it's all Yaga's point of view. But we go, and she goes to Ivan's the Tsar's Kremlin, and then she's back in the woods, and she's involved in the different revolutions, and she really captures this very bloody, horrible time in Russian history. And there's a reason why Ivan is Ivan the Terrible, but she gives him a really great motivation, which is interesting. She makes him very complex. And it matches history because I've looked it up. He wasn't violent until after his first wife died and she was poisoned. And that plays a big role in the book, where he becomes Ivan the Terrible, and he's being manipulated. And you find out it's manipulated by the gods, and it's very complex power struggle with the gods and the Lord of Death and the Lord of Winter, and God's not wanting to be where they are and wanting to be other places, and all fighting over who's going to be great, and other people trying to escape the world of the dead. And it's just, but all of it works because these were all things happening in history too, that there was this great cold period in Russia's history, a great bloody period in Russia's history. And Yaga kind of follows that timeline. And it also is a story of a woman who, when you open it up, she hates her mortal side and she hates humans, and she's hiding in the woods. And by the end, it's her mortal side that saves her. And she's embraced being mortal. And in between is so complex.
Lots of great world building, though.
It's incredibly well built. And like I keep going back to the complexity just because she's got such a huge cast of characters. And at times, I will confess, at times it was a little overwhelming because I was having trouble. One, there's a lot of Russian names, which I kept saying, God, I'm glad I'm not the proofreader on this, because some of those names, these long Russian names of places, and I'm like, I felt, thank God I'm not the proofreader, because it was a lot of work. Her details were perfect. And she had this giant cast of characters, which did get overwhelming, but at the same time, they all had such unique personalities. And to do that with 6, 7, 8 people is fantastic. And she did it with her villains. I mean, Ivan is a complex villain. There's another one it's Koshi the Unkillable, I think is what he was called. He's got many names, and she tells his backstory, but he's not all evil. Yaga is at times very passive and kind of like you want to smack her, and then other times she's very brave and takes charge, which kind of works because she's got some duality in her anyways. And then your villain's the same way. At times, she's this horrible person, but then she has this little glimmer of sympathy.
Right.
And you're going, oh, well, your life, and you see why she's the way she is. And even Mother Nature is not all good or all bad. None of the gods are all good or all bad. She balances everything so well. And the other thing that I wanted to really give a shout out to is her language.
Oh my God, it's beautiful.
Absolutely. There's a couple things I was going to read one just because when I first got to the first few pages and her opening lines even were, it's not that twilight tasted different, though on my tongue, the humid spring air had the bitterness of a snowfall. It was that even in the Russian forest, dusk bled into the light with infuriating leisure. And the whole book is these beautiful sentences that are just, every word is just so lovingly placed. And I wonder how long it took her to write this. This has got to have been a multi-year effort. I just can't picture someone whipping
the detail alone.
No. And the detail, the attention to Russian history. I would not have normally picked this up. I will be honest. If you told me this is a book about Ivan the Terrible and a witch and there's a lot of gods in it and it's about Russian mythology.
In the 16th century, I would have been
16th century Russia. And it's fantasy.
God bless Chit Chat, right? Because those girls have ended up recommending some really great books.
Oh, they have. So I'm glad. Yeah, it was from HF Chit Chat. And we were trying to have her on last year, and we were having so much trouble because she kept going. First she was on book tour, and then she was in deadline, and then she was in revisions, and then she's like, I'm in the revisions from hell. Like, it took forever. So finally we said, we have to make sure we feature this book.
Yeah,
And
so put it on a reading
I'm
challenge.
so glad I picked it up, because I never would have otherwise. And I'm going to urge historical fiction people to go find it in the fantasy section.
And yes, and she has a new book coming really soon too.
Oh, good. And it will be interesting to see what she does, because I do think that she's incredibly talented. I think she's going to be one of those writers that doesn't put out a ton of books. This is just my prediction. She's going to put out books, but they're going to take a little while, because I just can't believe that someone who writes with this lyrical style and this amount of detail and intricacy writes books quickly.
Yeah. So her next one, I just did a quick, you probably saw my eyes divert, but her next one coming up is The Haunting of Moscow House. And the cover looks really interesting. So that's the next one.
Because she is definitely someone that deserves some attention.
Yeah, the writing is gorgeous. And this is not one of those books that, I sit down and read it in, 2 nights like I did with Brianna's. It's a bit of a slower read, and I think because there is so much detail, that it took me a bit longer. Like I said, I'm not quite done yet, so I'm glad you didn't really spoil the ending.
The only thing, if I had to nitpick, and I said it to you offline, that this is more of an editorial choice. There were times when I thought she could pick up the pace at the end that was a bit repetitive. But one, she's tied to a timeline, so things had to happen when they happened. She couldn't exactly make history change itself. And that I'm a category writer. I tend to write tight and short. That's just my thing. So I'm always going, I think they drag this out. They could have picked up the pace a little bit. I mean, that's just my nature. I think that I will warn people. It's kind of graphic. Spoiler.
I didn't mind it. Or so far, I mean, it's violent, but I haven't minded it.
No, it's not gratuitous. It's not gratuitous, but she doesn't shy away from the fact that this was a bloody, cold time. And, a lot of people are getting their throats slit, and entrails are being tossed around in one scene.
Well, and entire villages are being destroyed.
Oh, it's awful. And then, and the villains there's one villain who's like a swamp person. And I actually, she was towards the end, kind of the comic relief.
Yeah.
Because she's lying in the swamp. But the fact that she's like in the swamp, just dying to eat bugs. But again, she was someone, I knew she was a villain when she first came on.
Yeah.
But I did, and I thought, well, you're being a little naive. Why? Of course she hates you, because you're Baba Yaga. And then but then when we found out who she was, I'm like,
that's why.
And she was, even that was really good. Like this, it was a surprise.
It was for me, and I was like, "Oh, that makes sense," because I was trying to put those pieces together. Like, who is this person to Baba Yaga? And
there's
then
a lot of political intrigue. At first, you think it's political, it's moral political intrigue, and it's not. It's all supernatural political.
Yeah.
Intrigue. And I can't say it enough. She did a great job. It is so tightly plotted.
Yeah, she did, like blending the two, the real and the magical, and blending the two together, I thought was just really great.
And there's a romance in it, which I wasn't expecting. And because you don't expect it, it sort of shows up, and it's tied to the first half of the book.
It
makes so much sense.
I'm on page 271 out of just about 400.
Yeah.
And that romance has just sort of really come to be. And I'm just like,
but I will tell you that there are some scenes towards the end that you do tear up at, because it is such a nice love story.
Yeah, you like him from the very beginning.
You do. And but this will go back to my other thing. She introduces people you think are random characters, but they all have a point later in the book.
Yeah, there's nobody that is there just for no reason. And actually, when that made me think now of a character in Librarian that, you go through part of the book and you wonder, really, why is he there? And then as things unfold, then you realize that he actually does have a really significant part to play. But, you know, it's really great when you read a book and you realize that there are no wasted characters or throwaway lines, that everything has relevance. Everything, you know, words, all the words are doing their jobs.
Which is hard to do in 400 pages. And this is her debut book. We should be clear. This is her debut novel. So she's only got up to go. And
yeah,
bar high. And it's one of my pet peeves is you read a lot of new manuscripts or unpublished manuscripts, and they'll spend forever on a character. And you're like, well, what point does this character have? And they're like, well, I just wanted to describe it and set the world. It's like, but he had no point.
Yeah, it all has to fit together. Yeah, there is nothing wasted that I have found in this book. And stuff that I thought was maybe like too much, like because there's a huge cast of characters. Like you said, everybody has a role, and sometimes it's a small role, but it's still significant. So yeah. By the way, I love her hut on the chicken legs. I love little hen.
Oh, I love the chicken leg hut. Yeah. Who is also a character. Like the animals, everyone has personalities.
Yeah.
So the thing is, I went down, I always love to go to the Goodreads and read like the negative reviews. And there was a lot of people, as people were complaining with like, they introduced characters that had no point. I didn't finish the book. I'm like, well, that's why you didn't have a point. If you had kept going to page 275, you would have found out that mention actually mattered.
Yeah.
You know, 2 thumbs up, 5 stars for me. And a book that I would not normally pick up.
Yeah, same. I mean, again, I haven't quite finished it, but
no, but I never in a million years would I pick this up if we didn't know Sydney and we didn't say, oh, we should do her friend Olyesa's book because it's getting good, decent reviews and she loves it. Yeah. And she's never stirred us wrong.
She has never steered us wrong. And I would give 5 stars to Librarian as well. And honestly, just the way it resonated in today's climate.
Yeah.
I think it's just read it. Just read it because it's really good.
I'm going to point out that this year's reading challenge, what we did was we went back and pulled books that we hadn't read yet from our to be read pile. So there are actually books that didn't jump to the top like, oh, I've got to read this book for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And we're finding out that we really should have read them a long time ago.
Yeah, like I've already read Fast Girls as one, and by Elise Hooper.
Audio version of that up right now.
Yeah, and you know, just so enjoyable. So it really gave us an excuse to bring some of the books we really wanted to read that we hadn't had a chance to yet, and prioritize them.
And I like that we're mixing them up. So.
Yeah, me too. Like there's some World War II ones in there because always, but. We've got, you know, just some really different ones. And
yeah, we should post the whole list again because we did have some really unique.
Yeah, yeah, we can do that. We can do it in the show notes and do a renewed Facebook post.
So we'll come back later in the year and do more that we've caught up on.
Yeah.
Once we do more reading.
Yeah.
Coming up, speaking of Sydney Young, she and Emily from the Book Distiller are coming on next week as our book chat, or next month as our book chatters. I am simply the facilitator. I'm not even sure how they want to do it. I want to talk to them if they want to ask their own questions or if they want me to throw questions out or whatever. Donna will not be appearing because the book is When the World Fell Silent by Donna Allworth. And these 2 women they're very smart and they know how to analyze a book. I'm looking forward to hearing how they pick you apart. I know they both gave it good reviews. So it's not going to be painful, but that's going to be something fun. It'd be fun to listen to 2 other people do our version.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I'm pretty sure they'll be gentle, but hopefully honest because I know.
Oh, I think they'll be honest.
Okay. So even my kid is reading it right now and she already pointed out one thing that was sort of, I'm not sure I like this part. And I'm like, fair, you know. So it's not a perfect book by any stretch, but you know, there's reasons. I mean, it comes down to editorial choices a lot of the time. So I hope they're honest and stuff because I can always learn from stuff like that too, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sure they will be honest. They're smart women. I love listening to how they analyze books.
Me too. I love both of them. I feel really honored that they're going to be doing that. So
that should be a lot of fun. And then our guest author in August is Denny S. Bryce.
Yes.
We read Denny earlier this year. She did the book with Eliza Knight about Can We Be Friends? And she wrote the Ella Fitzgerald part. She's doing the Trial of Mrs. Rhinelander.
Yeah.
A book that I have been dying to read because this is a case that's fascinating. I can't wait to hear her spin on it. It was about a woman who was accused of a black woman in a divorce trial who was accused of marrying a white man for his money. I'm looking forward to Denny's take as a black professional woman about how she feels this woman was handled. I think in history did not do this woman justice.
Yeah.
I think she was done wrong by the court system and by a lot of powerful white men. So I really am looking forward to Denny's take.
Imagine powerful white men not being fair.
Like picking on a black woman. Similar. So
Kelsey, please.
That's it. If he brings up cat ladies, we're on it. Not a political judgment. So thank you all for coming. I'm glad everyone listened. If you liked us, please like and subscribe our channel for more fun shenanigans every month. And join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/stepintothestory. Our policy is for between now and November, we are not posting politics. We're posting about books, cats, and interesting things.
And possibly the Olympics over the next few weeks.
Well, the Olympics, but no.
No, we're keeping it at politic.
It's a place to go to escape the news because
and just be book lovers. And I mean, as much as I said about the Librarian of Burned Books being timely, I think book banning I think supersedes like the actual politics that are going on here. So
because I think we both know all the political sides have done their job.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good
way to put it. So join us. I hope you like this, and we will see you next month, which is in
August.
So we'll see you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.